Support comes from the City of Tucson and Tucson Water Department, encouraging Tucsonans to be responsible Sonoran Desert dwellers. Learn more about Tucson's water-smart traditions and efforts to keep Tucson sustainable at TucsonWaterRunsDeep.org. The following is an AZPM original production.
Fast, fun, and affordable.
You've seen it in every advertisement aimed at Midwest snowbirds.
Of the Santa Catalina Mountains. The 9-hole course is the best in Oro Valley.
Soft rolling hills of a green golf course set against the backdrop of the Catalina Mountains and desert scrub at sunset.
Check out Tucson City Golf, Southern Arizona's best golf value.
But in a state facing some of the biggest water concerns in the country, how does this sport make sense here?
They're asking for the closure of golf courses, saying maybe that could help save water and alleviate the impending.
The question is often raised, how do we have so many gorgeous green golf courses when water is at a premium?
Are golf courses needlessly wasting precious water supplies? Many of you have asked this of us online as the drought gets worse.
To try and answer the question of the environmental and economic impact of golf, AZPM pulled a decade's worth of water usage records for a large portion of the state's golf courses. There's well over 300 in the state. This is Tapped, a podcast about water. I'm Zach Ziegler.
And I'm Hannah Cree.
So what can a decade of water use data and some insight from people who know about the golf industry and the complexity of water firsthand tell us? If you're a water official, there are two categories of golf courses in Arizona. Those built before 1985 and those built after.
That's because of the Groundwater Code of 1980, passed by the legislature and enforced by the Arizona Department of Water Resources. Even 50 years ago, groundwater depletion was a serious concern, and the standards the code set for golf courses remain the same to this day. Tim Cloninger, a golf course agronomist for Staples Golf Design in Scottsdale, says in some ways Arizona is doing well.
You know, golf courses since 1985 in Arizona have really been built efficiently from a water use standpoint. And, a majority of the golf courses have been built after 1985.
Now, we're only talking about golf courses in the state's 6 active management areas, which are also formed under the Groundwater Code. These areas are often in the state's more populous regions and rely heavily on groundwater, so they're more actively monitored by the department. They're the reason we have a data set for golf course water usage, since courses within these 6 areas are required to report their usage every year.
Any golf course built after 1985 had to comply with certain turf restrictions. The department sets these rules in terms of allotted acre-feet per hole. As of 1985, lawmakers decided each hole on any new golf course was allotted 23 acre-feet of water per year. Now, let's take a step back and define some water jargon. An acre-foot is about 326,000 gallons, or in simpler terms, enough water to cover an acre of land a foot deep.
To put it another way, although water usage varies greatly, rough estimates from the department say an acre-foot is about as much water as 2 or 3 Arizona households use per year. Or, given what'll be on many people's TVs in a couple of weeks, enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool halfway.
Back to the golf course regulations. Bypassing some complicated math for us, turf experts say that 23 acre-feet limit means 18-hole golf courses built after 1985 are capped at 90 acres of grass. And the enactment of the Groundwater Code did make golf courses smaller. According to Cloninger's research, golf courses averaged over 100 acres of turf before 1985. After, the average size dropped to 83 acres.
By the way, yes, this is a podcast from an NPR member station, and while you might expect to hear what we in the industry call natural sound, like hitting a golf ball, or a ball going in the hole, or sprinklers watering, you won't, because we struggled to find any golf courses in the state who would talk to us about this topic, and no one would talk to us at their course. And by the way, so far this episode, any of those sounds you've heard are stock sound effects. Now let's get back on topic and talk about how water gets used and how much of it is used on golf courses.
The simplest takeaway from our dataset is that the total acre-feet used by golf courses over the last 10 years across the whole state has gone down, and by the most significant margins in the last 3 years. On the surface, that sounds like a good trend, and proof that recent allocation cuts from the department are having an impact. However, as we dug deeper into the data, the picture got more complicated.
At first, we thought the data showed a majority of golf courses at or below their water allotments for the year, with a handful of bad actors in some wealthy areas. At the top of our list were 8 courses, 7 of which were in Maricopa County, that were consistently above their allotments for the year, anywhere between 150 to 200% above their allotment on average.
However, as we reached out to some of these courses, we began to realize that the Department of Water Resources has some flaws in their database. For example, Whisper Rock Golf Club in Scottsdale was on average 200% over its annual allotment for the last decade. But Whisper Rock's general manager of golf, Trent Rathbun, says that has a pretty simple explanation.
We have 36 holes of golf, and ADWR only has us recorded for 18 holes, and we've been working with them for, it seems like the last 18 months to try to get that through.
Whisper Rock has had 36 holes since 2005, and the department has yet to update the club's allotment. However, Rathbun says even though they're overusing in ADWR's eyes, they haven't received any fines or other consequences from the department.
A similar reporting error happened at our second highest user, the Golf Club of Scottsdale. According to their website, the highly exclusive and very expensive club has 2 18-hole courses and 1 9-hole course, bringing their total to 45. At 23 acre-feet per hole, that would bring their total allotment to about 1,035 acre-feet per year. But they're only getting half of that, and this could be another example of a miscommunication with ADWR. Since they don't have updated information on the size of multiple Arizona golf courses, it's not immediately obvious whether or not some users are being responsible with water while others aren't. Besides the reporting mismatch, we also found a number of rules that make it easier for golf courses to use more water. One of the easiest ways is if you happen to operate a golf course built before 1985. Those courses don't have to comply with the 90 acres of turf limit.
The other way to use more water is to use effluent. A lot of people refer to effluent as recycled or reclaimed water, since it often gets a second use on golf courses or municipal turf areas.
Using effluent comes at a discount. Now it varies from AMA to AMA, so let's set up a hypothetical one. Say ours discounts effluent to 40%, meaning the department counts it as less than half of the actual number. An acre-foot is about 326 gallons, so using an acre-foot of effluent in our hypothetical AMA would only count as about 130,000 gallons towards a course's allotment. And if that course used all effluent, then the allotment number may not apply at all.
But course managers we talked to said effluent is harder to use because of its chemical and mineral composition, and requires specific infrastructure to set up. Because of that, certain management areas are better than others at using recycled water. According to the department data, Tucson's water for golf courses is about half groundwater, half recycled water, with another small portion coming from the Colorado River. The Prescott area's golf course water, on the other hand, is 75% effluent.
So how do some courses ensure that they're being as efficient as possible with water? We'll hear after the break.
Here at Shortwave Space Camp, we escape our everyday lives to explore the mysteries and quirks of the universe. We find weird, fun, interesting stories that explain how the cosmos is partying all around us. From stars to dwarf planets to black holes and beyond, we've got you. Listen now to the Shortwave podcast from NPR.
This is Tapped, a podcast about water. I'm Zach Ziegler.
And I'm Hannah Cree. The golf course owners and industry insiders we spoke to said they want to be as water efficient as possible, and many of their websites use their conservation endorsements as a selling point. Agronomy technology is part of this. Tim Cloninger says that the species of grass is nearly as important as the water used to grow it, especially in the desert.
Warm season grasses are much better suited on how they function to deal with heat and drought. They can withstand much higher temperatures, use much less water in hot environments, hot climates.
Bermuda grass is ideal desert turf. Native to tropical Africa, its best growing temperature is about 100 degrees. Arizona's peak golf season is in the fall and runs through the spring, when those 100-degree temperatures finally ease up. But that schedule doesn't line up with the Bermuda grass growing season.
Bermuda grass, if you just leave it alone, typically goes dormant around Thanksgiving, early December, would go brown if you didn't overseed it.
Overseeding is a technique golf courses use to keep their grass green through the winter.
Golf courses will typically go in late September, October, plant the ryegrass. The ryegrass germinates. It's established by mid-October, end of October, and you have a green playing surface, November to March, where the Bermuda grass would be at that point dormant or semi-dormant.
That means that courses are nice and green in time for the snowbirds and winter tourists who are escaping from places where their courses are at that time covered in snow. But there's a drawback. Golf courses usually have to close for a few weeks to overseed, and in Arizona, that would fall as the season starts to get going. Plus, getting that new seed to take root takes a lot of water. Cloninger says a relatively new trend in some courses is to skip overseeding and let the Bermuda grass go into its dormant state, where it dries out and turns a yellowish brown. It's a trend that the industry calls going blonde. But this practice mostly applies to courses that cater to local players because, to butcher a Marilyn Monroe movie title, tourists do not prefer blondes.
Local golf clubs where they have more of a year-round residence, they might choose to not overseed because they want their golf course to not close for overseed, and overseeding is not as important. But, for tourism golf, the overseeding really helps.
And a healthy, bright green is really important for courses that market themselves towards out-of-state players.
Most golf courses in Arizona are tourism-based golf courses where most of their play happens from November to March, April, and that's when they need to look good, play good, and overseeding provides that excellent look and playing conditions throughout the winter.
Bree Kenny is the environmental science manager for Troon, one of the biggest golf course management companies in the U.S. They also operate the 5 courses owned by Tucson City Golf. But 5 years ago, she never would have guessed she'd end up in the golf industry. She knew nothing about it when she started working at a country club, and even then she had some of the same concerns of massive green patches in the middle of the desert.
Before I started working with golf, I thought that they were using the majority of the water in the state and that they didn't really have much of a thought process about how they applied the water, because to me, I just assumed more water meant more lush looking grass.
Lush is probably the wrong word, she says, because
more water leads to disease and leads to squishy grass, which is exactly what you don't want on a golf course. And then additionally, it's extra money. It means you'd have to apply more chemicals to fix the issues that you caused by overwatering.
In reality, water is a fine balance.
Basically, you're striving to be dry but alive. So you want to push that limit of how dry can you make the grass without it dying, because that rolls better. Even here in the desert, the turf grass species are meant to survive in these conditions. So they're giving you that flexibility to push those limits.
Water officials in Arizona who work with golf course managers told us they hear the same thing. They're really interested in reducing their water use.
And Cloninger says there have been significant scientific advances in the last 10 years that have helped improve water efficiency. He explains that the transition period when the Bermuda grass starts to come back is key, because 2 competing grasses require more water.
Transitioning ryegrass out early has changed a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. There's more products available that will slowly regulate the ryegrass and really encourage Bermuda grass to start growing, because it comes down to a competition where you have the ryegrass growing on top of the Bermuda grass. The Bermuda grass is underground below coming back from its stolons and rhizomes and slowing down that ryegrass and regulating it early in the spring really allows the Bermuda grass to come back and establish quicker into the season.
One of the clubs we mentioned earlier, the Golf Club of Scottsdale, offers a $30,000 3-day experience that includes custom-fitted golf clubs and outfits, private dinners, spa service, and of course, unlimited golf games. If the price tag wasn't prohibitive enough for you, you have to submit an application online for a chance invitation, or be lucky enough to know someone in the 500-member club. The other Scottsdale course we mentioned, Whisper Rock, has an initiation fee of $130,000.
This is a long-winded way of saying golf can be expensive.
And if you want to try to look at the $130,000 price tag more positively, golf brings a lot of money into the state.
We wanted to see how much golf impacts Arizona's economy with its water use. So to do this, we looked at the payoff of water in 3 different industries. To compare that water bang for your buck, we looked for reports that estimated an industry's economic impact, which usually came from industry groups like the Arizona Alliance for Golf or the Arizona Farm Bureau. The water numbers came from the state government. Agriculture, which accounts for most of the state's water use, brings in about $700 per acre-foot of water used, where golf brings in about $25,000 for each acre-foot used. It helps that the sport is a tourism draw in its prime season, so it has indirect spending on things like travel, hotels, restaurants, etc. But compared that to the state's relatively small manufacturing industry, which produces about $164,000 of economic impact with an acre-foot of water. Now, let's not read into those numbers too much into an industry's value to the state. Food production is necessary because, well, we all have to eat. We can't rip up all the farms in favor of golf courses, and we can't rip up all the golf courses in favor of factories. But from an economic standpoint, golf courses have value.
It's worth noting that in 2025, golf courses will undergo another pretty steep cut in their water allotment from the state. On top of the cuts that went into effect this year, it brings the total reduction in supply to 4% in the last 2 years. Those cuts could mean that even more innovation in technology and conservation is needed to ensure the sport can continue in Arizona in the decades to come.
While golf is using technology to help lower its quantity of use, what about what's going on with water quality in the state? Arizona is a place steeped in military tradition. In fact, its first ever territorial capital, Fort Whipple, was an army post near Prescott. But in Tucson and other places, that military presence during the 20th century brought with it groundwater contamination, as industrial chemicals from bases leached into the soil, causing the federal government to declare some areas hazardous waste sites. So what's being done to ensure that the water we have can be made safe for drinking once again? That's next time. Tapped is a production of AZPM News. This episode was written and reported by Hannah Cree, with data reporting and audio mixing by me, Zach Ziegler. It was edited by our news director, Christopher Conover. Our theme music and some interstitial music is by Michael Greenwald. Visit our website in the podcast section of azpm.org for graphics, links, and more. Thanks for listening.
AZPM podcasts are made possible in part by donations from listeners like you. Learn more at support.azpm.org. Thank you.
Support comes from Central Arizona Project. CAP employees are dedicated to maintaining the reliability of CAP's infrastructure for delivery of Colorado River water to central and southern Arizona. Learn more at knowyourwaternews.com.